would take a leading supercomputer over 10 raised to the power 25 years, far beyond the age of the universe. So look at the kind of change that is happening in and around us. And if you see, the biggest impact is on these 5 domains. You can see these 5 domains. The biggest impacts are on this. And one of the domain is of education. So whatever we may be doing in our own right now is not sufficed enough to keep pace with this particular change. So these type of FDPs, as I said, are there to sensitize you regarding some of the aspects which are other from your domain. So many times as we go into a cognitive mental block while teaching a particular subject, so whenever you listen to some of the FDPs or some of the resource person who are coming from varied domains, sometimes it can give you an idea to do a research in your own domain using some of the domains from the other ideas from the other domains as well. So this is the purpose of these FDPs, right? Another aspect, if you look at it, Startup India, or what I'll say, the startups has become a critical in terms of our country's growth. So our Honorable Prime Minister has this vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. Now, for that particular thing to happen, startups are going to play a big part. So serials like Shark Tank India, I don't know how many of you are actually watching that particular serial, Shark Tank India, a very interesting serial with that in their ventures. So if you look at it, the growth of startups in our country has been phenomenal. From a merely 500 startups that were recognized at the end of 2016, the numbers has risen up to 1.59 lakh startup by the starting of January 2025. So that's a huge growth. That's a phenomenal growth in the number of startups. And when I'm saying these are all DPIIT's Government of India recognized startups. It is the Department for the Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade, right? DPIIT, Government of India. So if you look at it, these startups are actually creating huge employment as well. And even they are providing the necessary impetus to the woman empowerment. So if you look at it, out of those 1.59 lakh startups, almost half of the startups has at least one woman director on their board. So these startups, how do I know whether my company is a startup or not? So many people might have joined for the first time. People who have joined from the first time, I like to ask them from the Rayat Bahara or Guru Ram Rai University, or for that matter, Vivekanand Global University, Jaipur. I like to ask the participants sitting in those universities or those remote centers, how do I know whether my venture will qualify as a startup or a small business? Suppose a student comes to you and asks certain help, because Government of India provides number of benefits to both small businesses as well as to startups, but the types of benefits differ. Even the ministries are different. So if you look at it, if it's a small business, it will be falling under the MSME ministry, Ministry of Small Medium Enterprises. While if it's a startup, it will fall under Startup India scheme by the Government of India. of DPIIT, startupindia.gov.in. How do I know whether my venture is a startup or a small business? I like to know from some of you. Anyone from these three remote centers? Hello? Hello? Are you there? Sonia ma'am? Deepika ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is my question clear to you? Can you answer? Anyone would like to answer this?
So can you repeat the question?
My question is, how do I know whether the venture that I'm launching, suppose I'm launching a new business, whether it will fall under startup or whether it will fall under small business domain?
So it's a startup, I think.
How do I know, madam? It can be a new small business as well, or not? The reason I'm asking you is, suppose a student comes to any one of you as a faculty member and asks you, ma'am, sir, tell me whether I shall approach Ministry of MSME or shall I go to startupindia.gov.in, that is DPIIT, for getting the necessary support. How do you direct the person, student?
So first we need to register, but if we require funds, so then we need to
Ma'am, funds will require in both the
go
cases.
for that Startup India.
Funds will require in both the cases. Even if I do a small business, I will require fund. Even if I do startup, I'll require fund. I can do either bootstrap it. So bootstrapping is where I use my own funds. So I can bootstrap my small business. I can bootstrap my startup as well. So there are bootstrapped startups as well, right? But the question is, how do I identify whether it's a startup or it's a small business? Because then I will go to different government schemes here, right? Anyone from the remote centers, Vivekanand, Guru Ram Rai, or anyone would like to answer this? Any faculty members? Or Rayat Bahara? Deepika ma'am? Any of you would like to say about this? Hello? Suppose, let's say, I am, hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anyone would like to answer this question? Suppose you want to open up a small tea stall near outside your university campus. Sonia ma'am, someone opens a small tea stall outside your university campus. Startup or a small business? Chaliye, I'll answer this. I'll not waste much time on this. Otherwise, it is depends on two aspects. So if you look at the as per the definition, as per the of a startup, as per the government of India, so you can see here that these all the rest four are satisfied by both new small business and startup. The only thing that distinguishes a small business from a startup is innovation and scalability. So a startup has innovation in it. It can be in the product, it can be in the process. Please keep this in mind. It is not necessarily innovation in the product only. It can be in the process as well. And because of this innovation, startups are highly scalable. That means they become scalable in very quick time. So this is the difference, and you can see here these all startups became unicorns, and as we know, unicorns are the startups that are that have 1 billion USD valuation of US dollar 1 billion or more. So we have now roughly 118 to 120 unicorns in India. So because of these, again, the things are changing largely. Many young students now, they are aspiring to become entrepreneurs. So if you look at it, another big change that is happening because of this is the new job roles that are emerging out of this change. So you can see here, these are the changes, these are the job roles that are becoming prominent, while these are the job roles in which they are becoming redundant. So the jobs cut are being done in these job roles, while there is going to be huge number of jobs in these particular job roles. And one of the domain, if you can see here, is project managers. That means what? Project manager is something that is going to be in high demand. It is still currently also in high demand. Also in the future as well, it is something that is going to be of high demand as well. So the upskilling becomes necessary. And if you look at it, these are the skills that will be required by the workforce today. So these are the changes in general, what I have just talked about. These are the some generic changes that are happening in and around us. Now let's try to look at and try to answer why project management for business startups. Now to answer this, we can use three lenses. That means we can look at this from a societal lens, we can look at it from an organizational lens, or we can look at it from an individual lens. So if you can see here, the societal angle is pretty big. Not only from the organizational perspective, but can anyone tell how does project management helps the society? Can anyone tell? From Manipal University, anyone would like to answer this? Or anyone else would like to answer this particular aspect? Why project management is beneficial from a societal angle as well? Anyone?
Sir, for growth and development of the society.
Okay. Right, ma'am. Absolutely correct. Apart from that, let's say as an individual, I lives in a community. So how does it impact me? So this is a long-term impact that you are saying, right?
Yes, sir.
Definitely that's true, madam. But if you look at it, there is also a micro level as well. Suppose as a common person, there is a flyover that is being built next to my residential address. Now, till the time the flyover project goes on, it will be a trouble for me because the traffic will be diverted and other things. There will be number of heavy vehicles that will be plying through that particular road of my residential area. So ultimately, I am also the taxpayer as well. So my tax is being used. So that particular flyover project, if it overruns, it impacts me as well in a big way. Not only small troubles, small issues that it creates for my daily commuting and other aspects, but also it is being funded by my tax. That it is being funded through the tax that I am paying to the government. So if you look at it, if the project management is actually helps you in carrying out the projects in a effective and an efficient manner. And as per these studies, if you can see here, 70% of the organizations suffered at least one project failure in the past year. Average cost overrun for most of the projects is 27%. Now this shows us what? That not only the project management is crucial. You might have seen through number of newspaper articles where a bridge was built and in the next monsoon it washed away. You heard these type of news in the newspapers? You might have heard these or read these news in the newspaper. I think it was in Bihar, if I'm correct. One of the bridge, it was supposed to be opened, and before it opening, it got washed away. That means what? That the project management was not done properly. So there are number of same things. These are from various resources. You can see that projects or the large projects are the ones which sees more failure rates. So a study by Gartner shows projects with budget over 1 million USD have around 50% higher failure rate than projects that are of lesser budgets. Even the organization says that the poorly trained project managers are one of the major challenges being faced by them. Not only this, if you look at from the individual perspective, project management holds its own importance. One, demand for the project managers are increasing day by day. Second, and in fact, that is, in my view, is one of the major reason to study project management, or major reason to where you can guide your students to embrace this as the professional career, is that you are always learning. You are continuously learning, because you are not stuck in one industry. So suppose if I, for example, if I if I start my career in let's say in cement industry, most of the time I will be only in the cement industry because I gain that experience, which will be beneficial for my next promotion or for my career growth. But if you are a good project manager, your project management expertise can not only be used in the cement industry, it can be used in some other industries as well. So that gives you a luxury of switching the industries without hampering your career growth. And that, in fact, makes the salaries of the project managers highly competitive. So these are the reasons which you can say or look at as an individual level, that why a person or anyone should know about project management per se. So, but it is, as I said, it is requires a lot of skills. It requires a lot of hard work as well. And reason being very simple. So if you look at a good project manager should have, these three domain knowledges. So the good project manager should not only have sound knowledge of project management domain, but he or she should also have general management knowledge as well as the application area knowledge. So it is basically a project manager should have these as the intersection of these three, where a project manager should be positioning himself or herself. So if I am into the domain of, let's say, construction, so I should be have a sound knowledge of civil engineering, I should have a sound knowledge of project management, and I should also have sound knowledge of general management knowledge. So these are the three domains, the knowledge of which a person requires in order to be a good project manager. So with this thing in defined, but before we come on to the project management, let's try to define a project. What is a project? Can anyone help me in defining the project? how you define a project? Anyone? So if you look at it, there are number of definitions that are given for a project. So like PMBOK, as I was mentioning you, the PMP certification. If any one of you is interested in gaining the PMP certification, or if any one of your students are interested in getting the PMP certification, they can refer to this book called PMBOK, which is nothing, which is the full form is Project Management Body of Knowledge. So it is a book which is endorsed by PMI as well, that is the Project Management Institute as well. They define project as a temporary endeavor taken to create a unique product, service, or result. A very simple and a very beautiful definition. While if you look at it, there are a number of definitions. One of the definitions which I liked is by Guido and Clements, and wherein they have defined project as an endeavor to accomplish a specific objective through a unique set of interrelated tasks while effectively utilizing the resources. So this is what Guido and Clements has defined project as. So one thing we have to understand here is project is always unique. Now my question to all of you is, if project is unique, then how can we have project management? Because each project is unique in nature, right? So when we say unique in nature, that means it has a start date and an end date. Otherwise, it will become repetitive, right? So it's just like a human being. So when we say human being, we say mrityu ek shashwat satya hai. That means the person who takes birth will definitely die as well. Similarly with the projects as well. Once a project gets started, it has to end as well. That means there is a life cycle of the project. Like similarly, we have human being, like we have 4 stages, usually we used to say, right? Balyakand, Balyavastha, Yuvavastha, and so on. I don't remember exactly. I think so. I am forgetting one. Balya, Yuva, Vridha. In between, there is one more stage is there. Similarly, project as also has its stages, but that will come later on. For the time being, we can say that it is an endeavor to accomplish a specific objective through a unique set of interrelated tasks and effectively utilizing the resources. So as I say, let's look at some of the attributes of the projects. So one aspect I have already explained. One attribute I have already explained, that it has a specific time frame. Another is it has a unique purpose. As I said, each project is unique. That means it is going to satisfy, or it is bound to have a specific objective. That means what? It has a unique purpose. Another attribute of a project is it requires resources from various domains. So it is usually, if you look at it, most of the projects will require resources from not only the human resources, they will require some technical resource as well, like machineries. They will require some monetary resources as well, and so on and so forth. For every project, there has to be a primary sponsor or customer. By the way, is there any difference between a sponsor, customer, and a consumer? Anyone? Is my question clear to all of you? Kindly answer. Is there any difference between sponsor, customer, consumer? Is my question clear to all of you? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anyone would like to explain that? Would like to answer this question? Or are
Sir,
they same?
excuse me, sir. Sir, customer is basically a potential consumer, sir. Unless or until he buys something, he is not a consumer.
Okay.
Unless or until he uses a product, he cannot be called as a consumer. Yes.
Okay, but customer, so you are saying customer, if he buys, then he becomes a consumer.
So
On
yes,
this
sir, if
one?
he uses the product, sir, if he uses the services.
Okay. So anywhere where the customer doesn't use this but still buys?
Unless or until, sir, he consumes the product or service, sir.
So that means what? A consumer cannot be a customer, but a customer can be a consumer. Both ways means. Let me give you an
Sir, sir.
example. So when you when a parents buys diapers for their child, so the consumer is child, but the customer is parents, right? So that's the difference. And sponsor here can be a customer or cannot be a customer. So tomorrow, can you think of think of it? So like for example, or it can be they can be the consumer for that matter. So like the flyover project, sponsor is the government, but the customers or the consumers are different. We are the consumers, the Aam Janta, right? So this is another aspect. Another attribute, which is a very important attribute of the project, is the degree of uncertainty involved. No matter whatever way you manages a project, you cannot make uncertainty zero. There will always be a certain degree of uncertainty that will be associated with the project. No matter you get the best of the team, you get the best of the project management practices to be followed, you get the whole amount of resources being given to you, still you cannot make uncertainty zero. So these are certain attributes of the projects, or these are certain attributes that are associated with the project. Keeping this in mind, we can define project management in this way: that project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project and activities in order to meet project requirements. Again, a very simple definition, but a very comprehensive definition, I'll say, and it is by Project Management Institute. Again, the keywords are highlighted in red. So here, again, if you look at it, it is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques. So it's not only about knowledge and skills, it is also about tools and techniques. So we'll talk about certain tools and techniques of the project management as well. And where you apply them to project activities to meet project requirements. So if you look at it, like in marketing, you have 4 P's. Similarly, in project, you can also talk of 4 P's. So the 4 P's here are people, product, process, and project. So product, I am talking as something as an end deliverable of the project. So at the end of the project, there is an end deliverable. Process is the set of interrelated task or activities that has to be carried out in order to deliver that product. And people are the most important element. If I'll say, the most vulnerable resource in any project is the people resources or the human resources. So they are also there. And then there is project, ultimately the project, that is the work that is being required to make the product in order to create that end deliverable product. But the problem is there will always be constraints. As I said initially in the when we were in the first session, or when we started this FDP, that there is going to be a trade-off involved every time. So let's look at that particular trade-off from the lens of triple constraints. And these triple constraints are what? These are quality or performance, what I'll say. Then I'll say cost and time. So the performance, cost and time. So we can say here in terms that it is very difficult to get these three together. I'll not say impossible, but I'll say these three together. So either you can have good work and cheap work, but it will not be quick. Or you can have good work and in a given, delivered in a quick time, but then it will not come at less cost. It will be, a little bit pricey. That means it will not be cheap. Or you can have a less costly work or cheap work, less pricey work in a quick time, given in a quick time, but then it will not be a good work. That means the quality wise, right? So time, cost, performance. These are the things. Performance, you can think in terms of quality and scope both. So these are the three domains or three trade-offs that happens. So if you look at it, project management primarily tries to balance these three constraints. So it tries to balance the trade-offs between these three domains. That means you try to deliver a project within the minimum time or within the stipulated time with a desirable quality parameters or performance parameters at a minimal, or I'll say not minimal, I'll say at a desirable cost to the sponsor or the customer. So these three are the major constraints, and based on this we will define our framework in the end, wherein we'll take these three, wherein we'll take time management as one domain, cost management as another domain, then performance we will divide into two, quality and scope. So we'll talk about that, but before that, let's try to look at the reasons because of which most of the project fails. As per one of the studies, most of the projects are never able to reach their end stage. That means they remains, if you look at it, most of the projects reaches 90%, but many of those projects remains at 90% forever. So if you look at it, there has been number of reasons that has been given in the literature why projects fail. I have just taken some major reasons for that matter. So if you look at it, these are the reasons that has been said to be the reasons behind majority of the project's failure. So some of the some of the reasons has been poor project specification. Now this is attributed to most of the project failures, wherein the customer or the sponsor was unable to define what they want. They were not able to specify their requirements. So just look at it, this a small funny take on this particular aspect of not making your project specification clear. So what happens when you do not make your objective clear? So this is the person on in the this person is the customer or the sponsor, and this is the project manager. So he's saying to this sponsor is saying to the project manager, not only did you paint my office walls blue, but you painted the ceiling blue as well. So usually, we know that ceiling is kept in light color, and it is usually of white color only, not only the light color. So which the project manager replies, you asked me to paint the room blue, and now you got a blue room. So to which this particular person says, but ceiling is not done in that way. So he said, you are lucky that I did not painted the floor blue as well. So you can see here that one is poor project specification. The another reason of to which most of the project failures are attributed to is the failure to manage the change required. So we'll have to understand this, that project will bring some amount of change. And as I said earlier as well, change will always come with some of its own baggage. For example, here, one of the baggage is conflict. So when you carry out a project, there will be change, and change most of the time bring conflicts. For example, this is again a funny take on the conflict aspect in the project management domain. You can see this person is saying to them that he has changed his mind. He now wants to be cremated when they are almost on the verge of completion of the burial pyramid where the person would have, or the king would have been buried. But if you look at it, why there is conflict? It can be because of the personal aspect or the individual aspect. As I said, it is human nature to resist change. Then it can be organizational level. So many times when there is a project that is being done within the organization, you might have seen it changes the power equations. So when I am saying structures and systems, what I meant here is the power equation changes. For example, in some of the government organizations, when there is an automation, this automation is actually, resisted by many people because then the power equation changes. In some of the government organizations, the peon is one of the very important person, because this peon is responsible for moving the file from one desk to another. So if you want that your work is being done at an expedited rate, what you want is that peon should take it quickly. The moment your file is done, it should move quickly from one desk to another. But the moment the automation comes, now this importance of this peon is gone now. Because in automation, the moment I click the work done, it automatically goes on to the next stage or to the next person responsible for carrying out the next portion of that particular file. So projects also changes the power equations. Because of this, the conflict comes, and many times it is environmental. So now you have seen when there are certain projects which impacts the cultures, values and beliefs of a particular society. So if you look at it in Chhattisgarh, there are many areas where the indigenous people living in those areas, they actually resist any kind of developmental projects, what we call as developmental projects. They resist. Reason is as per their culture, values, and beliefs, those things are not good, and they may be correct in their view as well. So key questions from a project manager's perspective is that there will be change that will be there. Only thing is, for every change, there is a price. And whatever the price is there for the change that will be brought in by the project, are the stakeholders willing to pay that particular price? So that is a key questions that has to be answered. Another major criteria for project failures has been attributed to management of user expectations. Let me explain this to you with the help of an example here. Let's say a customer, as I said many times, the customer or the consumer themselves, they don't know what they want. When they don't know what they want, the way they explain may not be correct. Can you guess or can you tell me any project where the users or the sponsors, they themselves are not clear about what they want? Can you think of some of the projects like that way? Anyone? Hello? Anyone would like to answer this? Where the customer or the sponsors, they themselves do not know what the project will entail or what the project will involve. Still, they go ahead with the project. So what is the way to do that? Or can you name any project for that matter, which is of this nature? There may be few, but there are still few things that we don't know. Anyone? Is my question clear? Are you all listening to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because no one is responding. Am I asking a totally irrelevant questions, or are they tough questions? Or yeah, infrastructure. Absolutely correct, Ravneet ma'am. So many of the times the infrastructure projects, we don't know what we want from. And there are some other technical projects, many times high-tech projects are also there, where we don't know what we want from them. So we have just a bit of an idea, that's all. So that means what? Customers are unable to define it properly as well. So you can just see here how the customer explained it, how the project leader understood it, right? Then how the analyst designed it. So this is just an example of an IT project, because IT projects many times also falls into this category, where the project sponsor knows, okay, I want to implement a project, IT application or IT particular software in my organization, but they don't have a clear-cut idea what they want from it and how it will be done. So how the analyst design it. So this is more towards people who are involved with the IT projects. They will be able to identify with them. So you can see here how the analyst designed it, how the programmer wrote it, and how the business consultant described it. Then you can see how the project was documented. And this is one of the big pain area in project management. Usually, if you look at it, project teams doesn't want to report in writing, right? Then what operations installed, how the customer was built. So you can see they were built very heavily, how it was supported, and what the customer really needed. So you can see here, this is just an example, but what I mentioned there. So some of the major ones you can see here. So
ठीक है मम्मा अजय तो
user
आई नहीं है क्यों
expectation.
बैठ के बैठे
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Right. So there are other some related, as I said, one law I already mentioned. Project progress quickly until they are 90% complete, then there usually remains at 90% complete forever. You can see this with the, if someone has built their own house for that matter, they can very much easily vouch for the same, that the maximum time it takes is in the finishing of the houses, finishing aspects. That means the woodwork and the other home decor items. So this is aspects is done. Then there is a Murphy's law. When things are going well, something will go wrong. When things just can't get worse, they will. And when things appear to be getting better, you have overlooked something. Another is that the rate of change will, if it exceeds the rate of progress, then also the project will never end. Right? So that means you should not allow project changes very frequently. You should allow changes, but should not allow very frequently. And another aspect, just I said, mentioned just a few minutes ago, that project teams usually detest progress reporting because many times it manifests their lack of progress. So this is the framework that we are going to use in this particular one. So though that's what, when I was designing this particular FDP, I used try to use this particular framework only. You can see here, as per the PMP framework, though it's a very extensive framework, so you require at least 3-4 days for each of these knowledge areas. So what PMP framework talks about, or the project management framework given in the PMBOK talks about, is it talks of 9 knowledge areas. In this, 4 are the key knowledge areas, which includes scope management. So you can see here, as I said, the 3 primary constraints. What were those 3 primary constraints? One was your cost, another was time, and the third one was performance. So in this framework, you can see the performance has been broken into 2 aspects. One is quality, another is scope. So instead of 3 core areas, there are 4 core knowledge areas, which includes scope management and quality management. Along with that, you have got time management, project time management, and project cost management. So if you look at the schedule that has been shared by me, you can see that I have incorporated these knowledge areas. So I have incorporated time management, cost management, and quality management. Then there are 4 facilitating knowledge areas or knowledge functional areas, which includes human resource management, which includes risk management, procurement management, and communication management. And then there is one area which encompasses all these 8 knowledge areas, which is known as project integration management. So in total, there are 9 knowledge areas. So we will try to touch upon scope, time, cost, quality, all the 4 core functional areas. Along with that, we'll also be touching upon on HR management and risk management. So these out of 9, we'll definitely try to touch upon the 6 knowledge areas, though the time is less. So we have accordingly touching some of the less thing. But in my view, if you are able to listen to all these 6 knowledge areas, you'll get a fair bit of idea regarding the project management domain. And all these knowledge areas has certain tools and techniques. So we'll talk, if the time permits, some of the tools and techniques we'll definitely look. And if the time permits, we'll try to look at some of the more as well. So with this, I'll start the next aspect as well. Any questions, any queries till this point of time? Any questions, any queries till this point of time? Otherwise, I'll start the scope management area. Hello. Any questions till this point of time? Yes, Surya ma'am. Any question?
No, sir. No questions, sir.
Okay. So let me start with the project management, taking this project management framework forward. So if you can see here, usually what happens, the projects asked for this, and many times people ended up building something like this. What I'm just trying to show here, just from the help of this picture, is that the project that the sponsor or the customers asked for a different thing, but the project team ended up building something different.
Hello.
Hello, yeah ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. यहाँ बताओ
Yes ma'am.
मैं कॉलेज
Yeah, so ma'am, any question? Hello.
एक मिनट होल्ड करो एक मिनट
Yeah, sorry ma'am, any questions from your side? Okay.
नो सर
Okay. So this usually happens. So what we are going to talk about here is that about the scope management area. So project scope management area is all about 5 processes that happens in this area, which includes starting with the first and the very important process, that is of scope planning, which is nothing but the requirement collection, analysis and correction. So in this process, not only you analyze the requirement of the customer, but you try to collect them as well. So if you look at it, you do this scope planning through various techniques, which is used by the HR people as well. So which includes interviewing the sponsors or the stakeholders. It also involves conducting FGDs. FGDs are nothing but focus group discussions, along with brainstormings or questionnaires. When we talk of scope, what is scope? Scope is the sum of products and services that has to be provided as an end deliverable of a as a result of the end deliverable of any project. So in essence, if you look at it, scope management is all about drawing the boundaries. So whenever you are doing a project, it is very important to say not only what will be done by you or your team, but also what will not be done. So this what will not be done is as important as what will be done. It is very, very important to put the expectations or to gaze or assess the expectations of the sponsors or the stakeholders initially rather than at the end of the project. So if you look at it, it talks what is or is not to be done. It will also relates to what products will be produced and how they will be produced. So as I said earlier, it is scope definition is all about defining the boundaries of the project in terms of what will be undertaken, in what environment, and within what time frame. So this is all about scope definition. When you are going to define scope, how do you define scope? It is always recommended that you use the process of decomposition in order to define scope. So when I'm saying decomposition, what it means is, it means breaking a project into manageable chunks of work, resulting in parts or deliverable that constitute the final product, and which is easy to plan, manage, and schedule. So for this, what you do, you also list down all the constraints. As I said, there has to be not only the aspect what will be done by you or your team, but what will not be done. That means all the terms and conditions necessarily has to be laid down in the initial phase only. So all these things fall under scope management. So you list down constraints as well. You list down all the assumptions that will be taken into consideration while defining or that are going to be associated with your project for that matter. So based on that, you list down all the exclusions as well. So if I look at the scope management, one of the very important aspect of, or one of the very important output of the scope management or scope planning process is WBS. Now WBS stands for work breakdown structure. It is not the breakdown of work structure, but the work breakdown structure. What we means by the work breakdown structure is that, suppose if I have to deliver at the end of the project, let's say, let me take let me take this particular product, right? A mobile phone. So in work breakdown structure, what I am going to do, this is a bit complex thing. So if someone asks me how much time it will take for me to come out with this particular product, right? So the sponsor asked me, how long it will take. So my answer will be, I will give it a particular time limit, right? Time range. So it will take anything between so and so. Now sponsors are not happy. Reasons? Because if you look at it, they think you can be able to give it in 3 months. But for you, what you have done is, you have taken into account, that most likely I'll be able to give it in between 4 to 5th month, between 4 to 5th month time, right? But there are so many assumptions, so many things that you have taken into account. And there will be high chances that you will be not able to provide this thing in time. So what is the answer? The solution is to use the strategy that is used by Britishers against us when they came to rule us. So for capturing India, what they did, they used the strategy of divide and rule. Same way, in this project management, when you want to make certain commitments, you use this strategy of divide and conquer. So what you do here, you break down this end deliverable of the project into small chunks. So for example, you can break down and say, okay, I have to first manufacture this cover. So one breakdown is this, then I'll break down into cameras, body, microprocessor, or chip, or whatever, the antennas, the other electronic parts, and so on. Because the moment I go to the small items which constitute this whole particular product, my time estimations and my resource estimations becomes more clearer and more closer to the reality. So the process of breaking down the end deliverable into manageable chunks of work packages is known as work breakdown structure. So this is something like this, wherein you can see you are breaking down into these type of things. There are two ways to represent it. One is the tabular structure, another is the tree structure. So you can see this one is shown here is the tree structure. You can see it's in the form of a tree structure, while you can use it in the form of tabular structure as well. I'll show you it in the later hop. But how do I know when to stop decomposing it? Because you can decompose it to an nth level. So I usually, the recommended steps is this for decomposition. That means you identify major elements, then you look at those elements and try to assess the cost and time duration estimations. If you think it is, you will be able to very much closely assess the cost and time estimation for those items, you stop. Otherwise, you further decompose it and repeat this loop. I hope this particular loop is clearer to all of you, that how I am going about it. That means you identify the major elements, try to see whether the cost and time duration possible to the realistic level. No, decompose it further. If the answer is yes, stop it at this particular level. So you can see here, I have just taken a small example here. So suppose I am carrying out a project of building a car, right? So I can now, if someone will ask me how much time and how much cost it will take to build this car, it will be difficult for me to assess. Even if I am going to assess the same, it will be very much off from the real estimations. So for that, what I do, I can break that building a car. It's a rough breaking down. So what I'm doing is I'm creating this work breakdown structure. So you can see here, I can roughly break the car into making of chassis, body, powertrain, and electrical components. Now, again, at this level, it is difficult to come out with realistic time and cost estimation. So I further break down these components as well. So here in this example, I have taken powertrain. So for powertrain, I have now broken down into engine and transmission. Again, I look at that whether the time and cost estimation, realistic time and cost estimation possible at this level. If not, break it down further. So I taken from powertrain, I have taken engine, and I have broken down into blocks, pistons, and oil pan. And then probably again, if I look at it, okay, then I have further broken down into pistons into design, build, and test activities. So the lowest level of the work breakdown structure are known as work packages. So if I roll up all of these WBS, what I will get, if I roll it up, I will reach to my project deliverable. So you can see here, I can break down these as well, similar way. Similarly, the oil pan, I can break down this, I can break down this, I can break down this as well. So you can see here, at this level, it becomes easier for me to give a realistic cost estimation as well as time estimation. So this is the importance of the work breakdown structure. And this particular representation of the WBS is known as the tree representation or decision tree representation. This is another form of work breakdown structure. So can you convert this work breakdown structure into from tabular form to decision tree form? I'll give you some time. You can see, understand, it is just nothing like, but many of you are PhD holders, doctorate degree holders. So you can relate to it very easily that it is nothing but the kind of indexation, right? The way you do or you create the indexing of your thesis that you do. So same way, if you can see here, you can have this as the major one. Then in this, then you will have 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and so on, 4.0 and 5 till 5.0. Under 1.0, then you will have 1.1, 1.2. Let me show you a little bit here in this format. So this is your major one, intranet, which you want to have intranet being done. So here then you can have 1.0. At the same level, you will have 2.0 and then till 5.0, right? Then 1.0, you will have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6. Under 1.2, you can then have, so this is 1.2, let's say. This is 1.2. Under 1.2, you will have further than 1.21, 1.22, 1.23, 1.24, and so on. Now, why we are using this tabular form? Because most of the softwares in the project management domain uses the tabular form for keying in the work breakdown structure. So if you use MS Project, for example, software by Microsoft for project management, you can see again it uses the tabular form for keying in the WBS. So it's always good to know about this particular thing. So you can see here, this is the sample WBS in MS Project. So you can see it's given in the form of tabular form rather than the decision tree format. But for us, the decision tree format is easy to understand or grasp because it gives us quick insight into the work breakdown structure, right? So this is then comes the scope management, which is the scope verification and scope control. So these two are the last two processes in the scope management area. So while talking of scope, this is always important to talk about change, right? So one thing you have to understand that it's always easy to implement a change in the project during the early stage rather than at the later stage, and which is very much evident. Many of you who have been involved in any kind of project, let's say if you are building your own house, if you have to make any changes, if you do the changes in the planning stage or when you are just started building the house, it is easier to incorporate and it costs you less to incorporate that particular change. Rather, if you incorporate that change at the later stage, right? And one thing that you have to understand here is that any kind of change will have an impact on cost or time or both. So this thing, what we have to understand here is that this does not mean there will be change. There will be change, but it will be to a certain degree and it will not be of this magnitude. So with this, I'll stop here for the first session, and I open the house for any questions, any queries. Any questions, any queries by any one of you? I'll be more than happy to answer that. Any questions till this point of time, or any other questions related to the registration or any other aspect of the FDP? Please feel free to ask. Any questions, any queries? Any questions by anyone? Hello. So if there are no questions, we'll stop here and we'll break for lunch. So we'll please rejoin, or you can stay connected. Kindly rejoin if you are disconnecting right now. We will have session by Mr. Hitesh Gulati in post lunch at 2:30, and he'll be taking on the role on the aspect of team building. Okay. So thank you, everyone. See you at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Any question? Hello? Any questions? Any queries? Any question?
No, sir.
Okay.